Welcome to Speaking Cinema, serious movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast coming to you live from our idyllic small town diner in Hollywood, California. Don't mind the bloodstains. Try the fish.
Little orange cleaner. Get those bloodstains right out.
Oh, you're about the orange cleaner. I'm about the OxyClean.
Yeah, OxyClean would work. That would work too. Don't ask how we know that.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, Speaking Cinema. I am your host, simple everydayman, Mr. Jibber Jabber.
Everydayman.
Yep. How do you say it?
Everyday man. Day by day.
Day. With me, as always, my dark past personified, Kevin.
That's me.
We are Speaking Cinema. We talk about a movie before and after having seen it. Podcast, on-demand radio show, movies, moving images and sounds that tell a story. Speaking Cinema, a movie podcast, do the math. This week on the Jibber Jabber, Tom Stahl has the perfect life until he becomes a hero. 2005's A History of Violence. This season, Season 8, back to our roots, doing movies that we want to talk about. Kev picked it, no theme, just pure love of cinema. Starring Viggo Mortensen, Maria Bello, Ed Harris, and William Hurt. Directed by David Cronenberg. First for this podcast.
First on we're dipping our toe into some Cronenberg.
Screenplay, John Olson, based on the graphic novel by John Wanger and Vince Locke. Produced and distributed by New Line Entertainment, a subsidiary of Warner Brothers.
I always associate their logo with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was before the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies.
And it's the house that Freddy built.
Yep, yes it is.
If you're not familiar, Tom Stahl lives a quiet life in a small town in Indiana where he owns a local diner. When two criminals show up and threaten him and his customer, Tom kills them with brutal efficiency. He is hailed by a hero in the community and on the news, but the exposure brings some shady people into town claiming to know who the real Tom Stahl is. Or perhaps who Tom Stahl really is.
Whoa. What a premise.
Filmed in Cronenberg's native Ontario, Canada, the role of Tom Stahl was originally offered to both Thomas Jane and Harrison Ford. Both turned it down.
Harrison Ford might have been a little too old.
I don't think Harrison Ford would have been able to really pull off some of the sexier scenes in this movie. Maybe I'm wrong, Harrison Ford. Prove me wrong. During their sex scene that we just spoke of, between Maria Bello and Viggo Mortensen, Cronenberg had asked the stunt team if there's any way they could pad the stairs. The stunt team said this is the first time anyone's ever asked them for stunt pads on a sex scene, and I think it's a real shame, Hollywood. Let's get those pads out and go to work.
Let's get some real nasty ones in there. I want to throw it against the walls.
All right, Kevin.
Get some pads.
This is getting dark. This was the last major Hollywood film distributed on VHS.
And coincidentally enough, the last VCR manufacturer closed down this week in Japan. So,
R.I.P. Burn in hell.
All right, don't miss it.
David Cronenberg reportedly did not know this was based on a comic book when he signed on to direct it, and some claim he didn't find out until halfway through filming. He has stated in the past he does not care for superheroes nor comic books, and says they are inherently adolescent no matter how dark and edgy they may be. To that we say,
come on, man.
Yeah, really?
It's like, it's art, you know?
That's some old man shit right there.
That's some very old man shit.
That's some rich old man shit. That's some like grandpa that we don't like visiting kind of shit.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Film was received well by critics. Didn't get major award love outside of Oscar nominations for the screenplay and William Hurt's performance clocking in at 10 minutes long. He's the brother.
Yep.
Right. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone included this film on his top 10 list of the decade in the 2000s, coming in at number 4.
It's a good list. You should go through it.
What's number 1?
There Will Be Blood.
Fair enough. Which I have not seen. As it is recorded,
wait a minute. You haven't seen There Will Be Blood?
Not my tempo. No, I don't know. I just haven't seen it.
Oh man,
that was at the time where I was. That was at the time where I was trying to get my hands on like Itchy the Killer, and I wasn't really interested in what Hollywood was doing.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we might have to dust that one off for the podcast.
I was like, how do I get a copy of the Japanese import of Battle Royale? As of this recording, this film is available on DVD and Blu-ray and VHS. and digital HD purchase. Not streaming. It's been on Netflix. Check your local listing. Kev, have you seen this movie? Have you heard of this movie?
Sure have. Saw it in theaters in 2005. Back in humble little Spokane. I remember it, I don't think it was in wide release yet. Somehow we got on the, limited expanded release. And that screen was sold out. Man, I was impressed.
I saw this movie, also when it came out. I don't remember if it was sold out or not. I don't remember where I saw it, but I did see it in theater with Emily. Shout out, Emily, friend of the show. That experience seeing it was like a horror movie experience. It was one of those rare situations where once the first violent moment hits in this movie, spoilers, I totally lost track of the movie, and it was as if you've never seen a movie before where you have no idea what's gonna happen. Yep. You're just on the edge. You're just wait, what? What's happening? What's going on? You know what I mean? It's just I don't know. Is he gonna die in this scene? And then there's how many more minutes are left of this movie? A million? 5? I don't know. And I remember just being completely thrown by the loving it. And I remember it was just I felt like it was really artsy to me.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a good crossover. If this movie was released in the 80s, it'd be, this is Cronenberg's, kind of lost suburban thriller. But now it's kind of, even the mainstream audiences are kind of dipping their toe into this darker story,
Mm-hmm. And so that's why you picked it?
I think it's a good film. That's why I picked it.
All right.
And we haven't done a Cronenberg yet.
Well, speaking of David Cronenberg, are you familiar with the work of David Cronenberg?
I am.
He has a long and varied career, dotted with both major successes, head-scratching failures, and a third thing, some indie stuff that kind of is its own little thing. Kind of his more recent work, The Map of the Stars or whatever it was called. And
Spider with Ray Fiennes, movies like that. And there's Cosmopolis with Robert Pattinson. He did that recently.
Yeah. His style has been cited by many filmmakers as an influence. Josh Trank, who said specifically his Fantastic movie was Cronenbergian.
It's Fantastic Four movie.
Oh, Fantastic Four movie, yes, indeed. You recently have watched that movie.
It showed up on HBO, so I was like, you know what? Perfect time to watch it. There's some Cronenberg type stuff in it.
A movie that is universally reviled, but I do feel like this again is the hysteria of the momentum that carries the hysteria, where it's people that movie's terrible, but they hadn't seen it. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's well, how do you know?
You just latch on to. It's like when True Detective season 2. It's
right?
That's bad. It's I haven't watched a single episode.
It's a sinking boat full of rocks. You know, it's dragging other stuff down with it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I think there's definitely not in just the story. The big Cronenberg moment is when they get their powers for the first time or have their bodies altered for the first time, and that's played up in kind of a body horror type way of what has happened to me, your body has literally failed you, or is taking control of you in a way you don't understand. And then there's kind of the interesting, there's some set design things that are straight out of Cronenberg. Certain themes are like that, and I really do think the first half of that Fantastic Four movie is pretty solid. It's a very interesting film. It's that second half where it all kind of goes to garbage. So
goes to garbage.
Goes to garbage. So I'd recommend people check it out.
But worth doing for the podcast?
Yeah, maybe.
In our summer not so blockbusters?
Yeah, we could do it for that.
Okay.
So I wouldn't mind revisiting it.
Cronenberg in the horror circles, known for his early work, which was exclusively body horror, right? And body horror, for anyone who doesn't know,
kind of introduced the genre,
right? It's this idea that the horror is not an outside monster; that you are the monster, and I think there's a lot of really cool things you can do with that, and I think that's it's almost one of these things where it's probably too real to people to really be very big, because it's illness and death, that's your own body going against you, right? So it's cancer, AIDS, fear of pregnancy, these are all things you can explore through body horror. And what's interesting, I would say, as the resident horror guy on this show, is that I don't really like these cult movies. Your Scanners, your Rabid, The Brood. I don't really like them. I think they're kind of amateurishly made.
Don't like Scanners, huh?
It's never. The best part of that movie is the first scene where the guy's head explodes, and then it gets real boring. I like that scene.
That scene's fantastic.
Also, people are like, I don't know how they did it. It's like,
they literally filled a prosthetic head with dog food and meat and like shot it with a shotgun.
Yeah, I mean, it's not
as lo-fi as it gets.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't look like a complicated thing. It's just you got to do it right. That being said, given his filmography, I love Videodrome and The Fly, and I say that those are movies that feel great to watch in the moment, and there's nothing like them, right? They're the kind of movies where you chase their ripoffs, trying to recapture the feeling of the movie that you can't.
And it's the movie that works as a pure movie, but then when you kind of start digging into it, there are layers there to it. Like, Fly is about AIDS, Videodrome is really about how media can consume us and change us, and like media as body horror. It's like, who thinks to make that story? David Cronenberg does.
Right.
It's
true. We've done a lot of, we've done a couple of small town crime movies on this podcast. Straw Dogs, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead being the two. Kev, this is something that you really get into. You want to refresh our,
Being from a smaller town and like going out into like even smaller towns, it is a whole different pace to just like how people walk, how they talk, the kind of things they're concerned about. So it is a fascinating place to put a big Hollywood movie. And I think it will always be a fascination for it, because if you're living in LA, if you're living in New York, it's like you always have that hustle and bustle and you never get that sleepy vibe ever. And so it's always going to be a fascinating way to kind of just look into it as just a means to get out of what you're used to. So, whereas most people, but I think it's tough to capture that vibe without looking satirical as well, as kind of like looking at monkeys in the zoo. It's like, look at these people in their trucks.
There's a language to that genre that is cliched and lame. You know what I'm saying? Like that can be cliched and lame, right? Like you have the Keystone Cops, and you got the
yokels.
Everybody's
a yokel.
And then you got the ignorant neighbor who is the villain, you know what I mean? And maybe he finds redemption, maybe he doesn't. And you got there's a lot of things you could go do with the small town story that's just like, fuck, this is just nothing new. You know what I mean? Really a love triangle level of familiarity. But, my recollection of this movie doesn't do that and kind of does explore it in a more interesting way, so perhaps we'll revisit that if it bears talking about after we watch this movie. Kevin! What are you saying?
Let's go do it.
All right, fuck it. Wait, before we do that, what's your expectation for this movie?
This movie is over 10 years old now. Does it hold up? Is it still shocking? Does it still move me?
That is also what I want, and I want to be transported to a rare place where great movies live. So, let's watch this movie.
Here we go.
Kev, we're back.
We're back.
How'd you watch it?
Watched my very bizarre Blu-ray 2-pack that I came across in a...
I also watched your very bizarre Blu-ray 2-pack.
A sip and swap at my work where we brought shit we don't want, and then you could swap.
Oh, the free table, yes.
Yeah, basically that. And one guy brought like all of his DVDs. He's like, I just don't really watch them anymore. So I cleaned him out of all his DVDs. But, and that one, it's a 2-pack of History of Violence and American History X, which I don't like.
It's the violence 2-pack.
Apart from history, those movies don't have a whole lot in common, I don't think. So, yeah, it is like a violence 2-pack.
I mean, it's probably you just figured out that everyone who likes one likes the other one.
I guess so.
Maybe.
But I mean, it's apart from scenes of violence and the word history in the title, those movies don't really...
Of brutal violence.
Brutal violence. But they don't really explore the same themes, I don't think. So, but whatever sells units.
Who you want to hear my thoughts, or you want to take this?
You start.
This is not the movie I remember it being.
Interesting.
And I will go further to say I remember it being better.
Ooh.
But it's still a gem, and I think it peaks into greatness at times.
Okay.
So I think this is a good movie, and I think further to that, there's a very late 90s, early 2000s look and feel of this movie that is extremely dated.
I think that's intentional, actually.
At first I thought it wasn't. At first I was like, what the fuck? And then later I think that they're doing this on purpose so when the violence happens, it is such a hard tonal shift. And I think that is no more present than in the first scene in the diner, where it's all like, oh, Susie, you're going to go out with Ted. You're finally letting Ted take you out. Oh. Yeah, suck.
Oh, yeah.
Small time talk.
Yeah. Oh, my wife, isn't she so wacky?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I was dating this girl and she was wacky.
She stabbed me with a fork and I married her. Yeah. And then you cut into, he's like, don't you say anything, bitch. And he's like putting his hands on the woman. And he like gropes her in just the most disgusting,
sniffs his hand.
Yeah, it's just it gets so brutal. But yeah, the fashion, the music, the dialogue, the look, like the cinematography, categorically fits in that time period. And it's a time period that I am not super fond of. It does work here though. But on the whole, like something like, I know what you did last summer. I have nostalgia for that movie in the sense that I am familiar with it and I grew up watching it. But like, that if I was gonna make a movie, it would not look like that. You know what I mean?
You wouldn't put the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones in your movie.
I would put the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones in my movie, but I would not like that. There's this 90s lighting where everything is very evenly lit.
Yeah.
There's a very long depth of focus. The field of focus is everything's in focus, and darkness is like darkness with a blue light on.
Yep.
And I just don't like that. It's very bright, but stylistically empty to me. That's the look. You know what I mean?
But I just think Cronenberg is very intentionally doing this.
Yeah.
And then he shifts it in the second half of the movie after he's killed Ed Harris's character.
Mm-hmm.
And like kind of the whole mystery has unraveled. Then you get a lot of really dark rooms, a lot of like different kinds of angles, a lot of like more imposing angles. The music changes from like kind of standard hero, like small town, to like these really dissonant strings,
which plays in the theme perfectly because there's Joey, who's the second half, and then there's Tom, which is the first half.
Yeah.
And Tom is a creation, so perhaps it's a little bit more fake.
And I think that, to me, he is 100% knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be shocked if he grabbed cameras from the 90s and made it that way.
I feel like Twin Peaks kind of flirts not with thematically this idea, but this idea that the Twin Peaks is supposed to feel like a 90s soap opera, right? And it does so in such a way that is almost it is to me alienating, right? Where I'm like, I can't watch a 90s soap opera, I just can't.
Yeah.
But in this, it's like, you got the son's dialogue, and it's so 90s, and his haircut is so 90s in 2000s. I remember the movie being a lot more artsy. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's very artsy. I
wouldn't call it artsy.
I think it's a thriller that just gets turned up to 11 at points.
Yeah. It definitely feels... It doesn't ever not feel like a Cronenberg movie, though. Even though this doesn't have any creatures in it or big sci-fi weird elements, it always is kind of in line with his style, I think. So yeah, it has his stamp, but in kind of subtler ways. But then we do get the nasty horror of like, he shoots him in the head and it goes out through his jaw and we see like fucking skin dangling and viscera coming out of his face,
Which is interesting because the violence, I just remember when this came out in 2005, that was just like a fucking slap in the face.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that diner scene is just brutality.
I feel like it does not hold up as well. I think a lot of the action is not as tight as I remember it being or that it even needs to be. I feel like they always take their time to show a complete action. So like, it's just not striking. So like, when Ed Harris comes to the house and is going to take him away, which is a great scene.
Yeah.
I'm not denying that. The guy points a gun at him. Tom hooks the arm and starts hitting him in the nose. And they show him hitting him in the nose 3 or 4 times. And it's like, we only needed really one. And you just sell it like he just killed him with that blow, right? Or you need 1 or 2 and make him quick. But it's like 1, 2 punches, and then cut to Ed Harris and come back. 3, cut to the other guy. 4, and it's like, tighten that up. You know what I mean? I think, and it might be of the times. You know what I mean? It might be a times thing. I feel like every action scene kind of has that issue.
But I think he's also showing that violence isn't very clean, and it's not this like quick action Jackie Chan style thing. It's like he's got to beat his nose 4 fucking times. He caves that nose in.
Yeah,
it's gross.
And I will say that every scene of violence has a climax or a peak or I don't know what I want to call it, like a dip or whatever you want to call it, where it sells you on the horror of what just happened, right? Yeah. And I think this is no better personified than in the worst fight of the whole movie, which is the scene in the high school, which the choreography in that fight feels like fucking Saved by the Bell.
Okay, yeah. But again, I think intentionally though.
Perhaps intentionally. I don't think it fully works. But then there's a moment where you see, he his fucking pro wrestling style grabs the bully by the seat of his pants and throws him in the locker. But then he like kind of does like a falling punch onto him, and he starts punching him, and then he picks him up, and you see that this kid is like, something's broken in his face. You know what I mean? And that moment hits you, and it's like hard violence. You know what I mean? I just think that it doesn't not work, but it's not as clean as I would like it.
Okay, that's fine.
But what I love about it is that Cronenberg is not afraid to be mean. You know what I mean? Like in the diner, the dude stabs him in the foot.
Mean movie.
And he's like, he responds by shooting him in the back of the head.
Yep. I mean, and even the violence in the last scene of just, he's got the garrote wire, but he kind of blocks it with his hand, and it's like, that's a nasty look of like the garrote wire just slicing into his hand,
right.
And yeah, Cronenberg, he's never been afraid of anything.
Which I have to respect. I love that. You know what I mean?
He never tries to soften it to make anything safer.
And again, the violence is always in such a contrast to the rest of the movie. You know what I mean?
I think there's a lot of contrast in this movie.
Yeah.
And watching it the second time, I noticed them a lot more.
Well, but I think that a lot of times in movies, and I don't particularly like this about the genre, the medium, which is that if a movie is lighthearted, the violence will be lighthearted, which is sometimes appropriate, but sometimes, like, especially if you're trying to sell us on the horror of something bad, it's like people are afraid to be mean, right? Like if something bad happens to a character, they're just like, oh, I'll tell you it's bad. It's like, make it bad. You know what I mean? Like, this girl's car breaks down, like, fucking shred that tire. Make it not good. You know what I mean? Like, it's like in The Shallows when Blake Lively is stranded on the rock. It's like her lips all are cracked. She's getting a sunburn. It's like, yeah, make her suffer. Make it bad. Like, spoilers for that movie, when she's stitching up her own leg that's been bitten by a shark. You know what I mean? Like, make it shitty. And they do. And that's why I respect that movie.
Yep. But yeah, this movie, watching it again, they're very consciously and I think very intelligently doing lots of big and little contrast throughout the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So I think it starts with the bully. So the bully is this small town idea of like, this is a bad guy. He's just a mean old bully and he picks on kids. And then they have that very fateful crossing with the criminals who we've seen in the beginning are very bad people, like in a more realistic way of they're just cold and uncaring and shoot children and presumably shot the motel clerk to get out of paying their bill or whatever it is, because they talk about how broke they are. And they almost have a wreck. The bully flips him off, and then they kind of just give him a cold hard stare. They drive away, and the bully is like shaken almost. He's like, who were those guys? He's like, I don't even want to know. Like, he's shell-shocked by that. So there's that contrast. There's the sex scene between... There's 2 sex scenes between...
Yeah!
The first one is playful, innocent, role-playing. She's the cheerleader.
It's a little... But, yeah, okay. Yes, just all these things. But also spiked a little maniacal edge of just being a little dirty.
But, I mean... We get a 69 scene.
We're gonna come back to that in a minute.
Probably the first major Hollywood movie to have a 69 scene. I'm just saying. But then you contrast that with this just primal fucking dirty sex scene on the stairs where it's, he starts it, tries to back out, and then she grabs him and is like, no, we're doing it. And then they have bruises on their back and are slamming each other against the stairs. It's like, it's this whole idea of there's these things we construct around ourselves to be to make us feel safe and make society feel better. And then there's the reality of like we are 2 steps away from just being animals. And they do that throughout the whole movie in just really interesting ways.
I agree with you. I think the movie goes for greatness with sex and violence. And acting. Acting is also really... We'll get to that in a minute. But they're making pointedly, the sex and the violence are really great. I want to talk about that first sex scene. There's... Even if I didn't like this movie, one of the takeaways from the movie is that, like in like a lot of movies, sex is very I'm not talking about just sex, but all sexuality. It's just very like not glamorous enough to be like erotica, but not real enough to be real. It's like this real, not even like I won't even call it vanilla. Yogurt. It's like unflavored. You know what I mean?
Unflavored yogurt.
Yeah, it's just like plain. No vanilla beans in there, nothing. And I feel like, and part of that might be trying to respect actors, or I don't know why, or because no one really wants to do it. Yeah. But if nothing else, that first sex scene is great because there's a realness in both mixing titillation and awkwardness, which is human sexuality, right? She's trying to be sexy, and she pulls up the
does the little dress flick,
and which, by the way, is sexy, right? And I am not going to name any names, but I saw that movie. It was like a big bunch of people who went to that, and men and women alike. Not going to name any names. There was some fucking blood, fucking, boiling, just running through people's veins. You know what I mean? Like, it was like afterwards, we're getting like a slice of pizza, and people were like, so, I mean, that scene was pretty, what do you guys think about that? And you take a big bite of pizza so you can't answer. You know what I mean? It was like, everyone's like, looking, like everyone thought that was, like, amazing, right? I mean, it was like... So anyways, but she whips off his belt and then throws it against the wall, and then it scares her when it hits the wall. And it's like, is perfect! And she's like, she's trying to be... She's like, and they know each other, and she knows that this is gonna work, And then... There's that dirtiness of just like, shh, my parents are in the other room, and it's like, you filthy girl. But it's so charming, and you want them to enjoy this. You want to see it. You want to enjoy it. You're not judging them because it's like, I don't know. That's the most charming sex scene I think has ever been made. Charming. You know what I mean? You're just like, oh, come on. You guys can do it. And then, they do a 69 scene, which is like, you never see that in Hollywood. Yeah. So I just give them all the credit in the world for making me want to cheer for them to hook up. Yeah. You know what I mean? More than, not for me, not for like, oh, I want to see this because I like it. It's like, you want the characters to be like, you want them to get it.
This is the best night they've had in a long time,
I want to cut away from the post the stair scene. I want to come back to that in a second. Okay. I love, and this is a masterful moment of filmmaking. Masterful. And of acting, too. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people are going to fuck this up. But when she comes out in the robe, and the robe's open, and she's nude, and she just walks away and slams the door, and doesn't cover herself up. Yep. That is so fucking great, because that scene, because there's such a dumb fucking thing, and this is all over television, where it's like, I'm naked, so I'm vulnerable. And it's like, I'm vulnerable because my husband fucking lied to me about his entire past. My nakedness... That's just what I do. Yep. You know what I mean? That's not what we're talking about right now. It's such an adult decision, and, I don't know. I give all the credit in the world to Maria Bello and everyone involved.
And a contrast to that sex scene of like, oh, I'm all covered up, and oh, I've got my panties on, and she's just hanging out there.
Right. Because
the facade is dead.
And part of the problem is a TV, you can't have boobs and stuff, but you have a girl, and especially I hate this when they do it with the wild child girl. So like, she's a wild child. She'll hook up with anyone she wants to, and then after they're hooking up, she's like all like covered up, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, she's like, I'm not gonna give you the satisfaction of covering myself up. Like, fuck you. Yep. I'm out of this room. You know what I mean? I just love that. So also sex scene on the we're going here, Kev. This train's moving. Sex scene on the stairs. 100% of the time, I hate shit like this.
Go on.
Where there is emotions tied to the plot of a movie that make everyone horny. Let me give you an example. So, and this is the staple in dramas, and I fucking hate it, Kev. I hate it. Where it's like, my dad died, I have cancer, I almost got hit by a car, and you're being a jerk, and midway through crying about all of this, we're gonna start kissing and have sex. Which has happened to no one in the history of ever, right? You know what I mean? People aren't at their horniest when
undergoing massive trauma.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it never makes any sense.
Except in David Cronenberg's Crash.
Except for in David Cronenberg's everything. This movie is the 101th percentile where it just fucking works. And it's like she's frustrated with him, she's passionate about him, she hates him, she loves him, she's betrayed, there's forgiveness, there's familiarity, and how Viggo Mortensen pulls away and then she pulls him. They're selling you on the reality of what's happening in this situation. It is not a convenient thing of, we want an extra sex scene, we want them to hook up, and we don't have any other place for them to hook up. If we hook up in the first half, it's too early. If we hook up in the latter half, it's too late. We gotta have them hook up. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times them hooking up is a function of the plot, and this is a function of everything. The plot, the story, the characters, the audience's interest, and it actually works. And it's a rare time where it does. Looking at you, every other movie that's ever been made. So, yeah, the sex scenes in this movie are something to study, I think.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And how awkward that is, and how they're like, they're humping on the stairs, and it's like...
There's no easy way to hump on the stairs.
And like, you know, they're trying to get their footing, and, you know, they're trying to, you know, like, Viggo Mortensen's pants are halfway down, and it's like, you know, it just, I don't know, it's done really well.
That's a masterful scene, but I think the true master scene in this movie, potentially a master scene for the film canon forever, is the ending. The final few minutes of this film.
After he's killed his brother, or when he's killed
after he's killed his brother,
and he's driven home. So it's a short scene. It's like the last minute or two of the movie.
This scene is so fucking good, and here's why. So we've gone through this whole... What the theme of this movie is about... We have these facades we build up. We have this world we create around us. It can come crashing down at any moment. And what this scene does, it says, can we ever come back knowing all the ugly things about somebody? Can we ever come back and do that? Can we ever come back and just live our life and be okay with that? It doesn't answer it. But it does it with no dialogue.
Right.
So it's all just like these perfect editing choices, these perfect shot choices, perfect acting by everybody. Even the little girl is just...
The little girl gets the plate.
Yeah, that's the first thing. So, is that he comes home, nobody knows what to say.
She puts the plate down.
Yep.
She sits back down.
Mm-hmm.
He comes over, hesitates, sits. Son hesitates, looks at mom, looks at son, looks at mom, looks at son. Son passes the meatloaf to him. He looks at the wife. The wife looks back.
Cut to black. It's
a David Cronenberg joint.
It's just... I'm still stunned by that scene. I was stunned by it when I first saw it, and watching it 10 years later, I'm still just like... That encompasses everything this movie's trying to do. This scene could almost work as its own short film. Almost. Because it's just...
I agree with that. I think it does.
I mean, everything we've gotten before it, I mean, we wouldn't have such specificity about, like, what has happened to this family.
Sure, it would be much more open, right.
Yeah, much more obscure, but it's got a beginning, it's got tension, it's got a somewhat resolution. It's just very... You can't help but just be shaken by it.
So what's your interpretation?
I think it's... We can live knowing all these ugly things we've buried in ourselves. And everybody's got them. This movie, is full of people with ugly secrets. Some people are open about it, some people are not. But I think there's hope that we can. There's hope.
I think it's nothing will ever be the same, but they will endure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not going to go back to the way it was, but it will go back.
It's never.
But it's going to go forward.
Nobody's going to be cracking Jimmy Stewart one-liners or being happy-go-lucky at the diner all the time.
God doesn't bless everyone. That's for sure.
But yeah, to do that, to convey all of that with not one word of dialogue, not one like big music cue. It's kind of just a lot of low strings. It's very like ominous. Not even ominous, just a very somber tone under it. Just do that with editing, looks, acting. It's so good. It's probably the best scene of Cronenberg's career.
And it kind of plays into the whole thing in the movie where, I mean, the son is kind of a little bit of a wiener kid, but him and his wife are both characters that they spend the first movie. Here's another thing about this movie, though, right? It's like, if you didn't know what this movie was about, you would not. There's nothing they give you in the first half of the movie that would make you think that he's actually Joe. Joe?
Yeah, Joey.
They are resolute in this. Couldn't have been a movie. They could have switched it and made it like, I am not Joey. You're confusing me with someone else, right? And it's like, just a mistaken identity Hitchcock kind of a thing. You know what I mean? They're giving you nothing, and in that process, you care for both the wife and him, and then you find out that he lied to her, and you feel bad for her. You know what I mean? And it's masterfully done.
There's the scene in the hospital room. When he's that line where he's like, where did that, she tells him, where did Stahl come from? And he's like, is a name that was available. It's like, that is the worst thing you could have said in terms of like, that has so many implications to it as to how is this name available?
But in that moment, you're like, well, one, that's if she
hadn't have already puked, she would have puked again.
I mean, it's a funny line, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like even in that scene, you're emotionally, you're like, yeah, he's fucked up, but you do still feel bad for him. You know what I mean?
You do. He never thought this was going to come back. And you can tell he's genuinely cares about this new life. Right.
And okay, that's what I was getting to, and it's playing into the ending. It's an understated movie because it's like, without him saying very much in way of dialogue, you get the sense, you understand the story, right? And it's a story that we've seen in other media where a bad person abandons a life of badness. And this is the other side of it where you see that, like, you kind of get it, where he's just like, I quit this life of badness, I didn't know what to do, and then I met you and everything about my life changed, you know what I mean? And it's like, you kind of get, like, yeah, it's like if you're a bad guy and you quit the mob, it's like, yeah, you take names that you can get identification for, and you do all of these things, and then when you find a woman that you love, you do all of those normal things, and then when she finds out, she hates you for all of it, you know what I mean? Yep. And it's very underly stated of, like, I want to be a guy who works in a diner and lives a quiet life.
Yeah, genuinely enjoys his life at the diner.
Yeah.
Serving up coffee and peach pie.
And I have to say, just the acting, the three main people in this movie, Maria Bello, Ed Harris, and Viggo Mortensen, just absolutely murder this fucking movie in terms of it. Maria Bello, super talented. I kind of want to see Lights Out now because she's in it. And I'm like, I just want to see her in movies. You know what I mean? Everything she does is believable. Also, like, when she kicks, even the small things, when she kicks off the shoes at the mall.
Yep.
She's like, lady, you can't leave it. You can't leave it. She's like, yeah, take the fucking things. You know what I mean?
She kind of just that, like, and then walks away.
Yeah. Also, with all due respect, Kev, she's a super babe.
She is. Fine-looking woman.
She's a general of the babe army.
Yeah.
All due respect.
Brigadier of the Babe Brigade.
Indeed. Also, Ed Harris. Again, because the wife could be annoying, and we could be on Tom's side, but they don't do that. And Ed Harris could be stupid, but he's not stupid. And when we first meet him, the way he's saying Joey is like, such like a bully. He's just like, Joey. And he's saying it with it's a jab, and there's a small glee in every time he says it. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like, you're like queer.
Yeah.
Like a little thing to kind of just...
Yeah. It's such a bully move.
Joey.
And when he's talking to the wife at the mall, and he's like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you know that you see something in him that's just a little bit underneath the surface, and you never really get to it. And he's like, I know this, and it feels believable. And it's like, and another fucking great thing about this movie is that
Have I convinced you this movie's great yet?
It is great. It is great. And I think this...
Not just touches it, is...
I think it, the first half is silently setting up the second half.
Yes. In a way that, if you never saw a trailer for this movie, never read anything about it, it would completely catch you off guard.
And it's like, he's crazy fucking Joey, but it feels believable that Ed Harris knows him more intimately, and he says that at one point. He's like, I know him intimately.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, so when he's talking to the wife about how, you know, there's something below him, you know what I mean? It's like, and you're getting this sense of him, and they never do a flashback, and no one bothers explaining why he left or what he really did when he left. Like, oh, you killed some guys and ripped out this dude's eye, but no one tells us about why, because who fucking cares why?
Which they do in the book.
Right, and apparently the comic book is not very good.
I wouldn't say it's not good, but the second half is completely different from this movie, and I think the movie's way better.
Right, and just wrap up Vigo real quick. Super good, and I mean Joey and Tom are two separate characters.
Yep,
and
you really see Joey when he goes into that bar, and the guy's like, "You Joey," and then he has to like make that conscious decision, to say, "Yes, I am Joey," and like he's a different guy.
But you get a peek of that right after he kills Ed Harris.
Yeah.
You get that face he's making.
Killed you in Philly.
Right, and then when he gets up after his son kills him, the face that he's making is like, ooh, that's not the same dude.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's so good.
And I will say, also, it's a tight 90-minute movie. Every scene is just long enough. They really streamlined it. The only scene I think is a little bit long is the post-69 scene where they're professing a love for each other.
Oh, okay.
This is a little bit like, we get it.
I think it's it's kind of the last cherry of like the ideal world. Mm-hmm. So I think you kind of need it just as like, it'll never get any better than this. Because guess what? The next scene's the diner scene. So.
And the reveal is so good. Her puking, the name was available. You never visit your adopted parents because you have no adopted parents. Like, everything that she's just figuring out is so great.
And yeah, the lighting has changed. Music has changed. Acting is like completely changed. It's just this whole tectonic shift that happens, that it happens subtly, but it's absolutely not the same movie, not the same story. And yeah, it shakes you up.
I had my problems with the movie that I've outlined previously. The only other thing that I think truly does not work is that the sound effects are bad.
Oh yeah, that's my major nitpick. Is like
that's more than a nitpick for me.
Oh yeah,
it is like
I'll agree. It is.
The gunshots are like gunshot A1 in Avid
in iMovie.
Exactly. It's like ba-blam, ba-blam, ba-blam.
Yep. Yeah. I probably didn't notice that the first time I watched it, but definitely seeing it again, it's like, ooh, those are some stock sound effects right there. And I like it when directors, you know, of all people, M. Night Shyamalan talks about, you know, it's like, even if it's like a door closing or, you know, a window shade opening, he's like, I record that new for each movie.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why, like, we can hear certain sound effects and know, like, oh, that was used in Indiana Jones and Stargate or whatever.
So, like, at the Huntington...
Also, Stargate reference. Don't know where that came from.
The Huntington Botanical Gardens in Pasadena. A lot of stuff is filmed there. You know, like the front steps of the front thing are usually a lot of times are used for the White House in movies. Costs a lot of money to film there. And people are always like, why do people film there? You know, like, why is everyone getting the gong? There's like a Chinese gong, and they record the gong sound and bird sounds. And it's for that reason, right? You want your movie to be its own thing, not tied to anyone else.
Yep. But yeah, those gunshots really stood out this last few. I was like,
not good.
Oof.
Any nitpicks?
Where
the fuck is Viggo Mortensen these days?
He's been he did have a new movie come out recently, Captain Fantastic, it's called. But he's been chilling in upstate New York, apparently taking care of his ailing father. Is what I've heard.
That's sad.
But yeah, he's got Captain Fantastic out. But yeah, he's a fantastic actor. He's really good. Have you seen Eastern Promises?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's good.
It's good.
And he was good in A Dangerous Method, even though I wasn't a big fan of that movie.
I agree with you. I think that movie is kind of one of those movies where it's like...
It's one of Cronenberg just... You made this? What?
Yeah.
Like, it just... You know how to make a movie. I know you know how to make a movie.
It's like, you're saying something, but I'm just not... It's just not all there.
Yeah.
When the cop pulls over the bad guys, he asks for the license but never gives it back. It's a nitpick.
Yeah.
Son's shitty hair. It's bad.
The bully's shitty hair. It's worse.
And then how the fuck did he drive that truck from Nowheresville, Indiana to all the way to Philadelphia, and 3 hours ago it wasn't even running?
Who knows?
Yeah, I'm gonna fuck my wife awkwardly and just drive this truck.
Also, I did the math. It would take from about where he is in Indiana, because I think Millbrook's a fictional town, but it would take about 15 hours to get to Philadelphia. So it's believable that he can do it in like a day and a half, because that's about how long it takes for him to go round trip. So they got that timing right, at least.
One thing, this is something that borderlines on me not liking the movie, but I like the movie enough that this is down to a nitpick. He doesn't sell his injuries over time. So this movie takes place, what, in the course of a week? 2 weeks? 1 week?
Yeah, well, let's say a week.
He gets stabbed in the foot with a butcher's knife. And he's limping in the beginning, but, a couple scenes later, he's not limping anymore. He gets shot. He's not selling that. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't really... There's not a long-term... The psychology of the selling.
Now that I think about it, it is something I was constantly thinking about. How much time has passed? I don't think the movie ever makes it too clear.
I think it's not that much time, though.
I don't think it's not like a month, but...
I think it's a week. If not, maybe a business week.
I think it's a little longer. But, yeah, maybe a business week.
Yeah, the attack might have happened on a Monday, and then, by Sunday, we're back at it.
Yep.
Any cool stuff?
The scene where he's loading the shotgun, or Maria Bella's loading the shotgun, he's running back home. They embrace, oh my god, he's gonna shoot it. Kid eating his honey nut notes.
And then the exposition in this movie is really great. We never say what the mom does until halfway through the movie when the dad's like, we can't afford a lawsuit. And he's like, what, mom's not gonna take our case?
Yeah.
And it's what a great way to insert that, right?
Yep.
And it's it's not really prescient to the story, but it's just good, you know? What law firm she works at? Who knows? But,
I do like the scene between the son and his, we can assume, girlfriend or flirtation or female acquaintance.
Yeah.
Where they're talking about just small town life. That is peak small town kid talk.
And I like how there's an implication that they're friends and they maybe both or maybe one of them has a crush on the other one.
Yeah.
But they're not at that point yet, and the movie's not about that, so we don't focus on it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's just a nice moment. This is what kids in a small town do on a Friday night. They drive around, they smoke cigarettes, they kind of just hang out, because guess what? There's not much to do. So that's Friday night in Little Town America.
I love a sentence title. A History of Violence. All the boys love Manny Lane. Don't go in the house. Don't go in the basement. I drink your blood. There will be blood. Why did we get married? I know who killed me. I spit on your grave. Debbie does Dallas. I am legend. Thank you for smoking. Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. Batman Begins. Superman Returns. John Tucker Must Die. There's something about Mary Jane, Silent Bob Strike Back. These are all... I love that. I love a sentence.
All right. That's an interesting observation.
I love that. And I like how that sentence plays into what we're dealing with, right? A history of violence. We're talking about his story, his past, and how it's influencing his life now, where his son has now killed someone. His family has seen terrible violence, right? His history of violence is affecting their present.
Yeah,
I like that. We probably could have talked in depth about that, but it's just there's so much to talk about in this movie.
Yeah,
I might have come around to liking it more than the rest.
I knew you would.
And just last things last. No explanation given to why Joey left. Perfect. Would you say this is a thriller?
Yeah, I would call this a thriller.
I think
it's not so terrifying to be a horror movie. And there is a mystery element, but that mystery is solved
relatively
about halfway through, And yes, the mystery is he who these guys say he is, and halfway through we find out yes.
And lo-fi action where
lo-fi action. Yeah, there's no big car chases, there's no helicopter police standoff.
He blocks a cravat and then kicks a dude in the face with his cowboy boot.
Yep.
Small town story. I feel like this is the kind of small town story that I'm interested in, where it's a different kind of small town story, right? No Keystone Cops. I mean, to the credit, the sheriff in the town figures it out, and they deceive him.
Yep. Yeah, they're openly deceiving him, and he's like, I know you're wrong, but okay, I trust you, but I know you're wrong. Mm-hmm. So
I like that. And I think it really avoids the cliches of the genre while embracing, what you can do with it, right? Where the cop's like, yeah, I'll let it go. I don't care.
What do we think about William Hurt's scene?
The brother?
Yeah, brother.
I think it's great.
You think he earned an Oscar in 10 minutes of screen time?
Did he win an Oscar?
He did not. I mean, he got a nomination.
I mean, I
forget who won.
I think if this movie was, let's say Viggo Mortensen was nominated, Maria Bello was nominated, David Cronenberg was nominated, if more things were nominated, I don't think it'd feel as random. But it is a great performance, and it's a great written scene where he's like, "You cost me, Joey.
Yep.
You cost me a lot." And he's like, "You're doing good." He's like, "Yeah, I'm doing good."
Yeah, it's again, another contrast to like little Tom Stall's little country rustic house, and then Joey's not Joey. Richie's just
mansion.
Old money, big mansion, marble floors, marble statues. I mean, yeah, and like you said, he's like, "You're doing pretty good, Joey." He's like, "Eh."
Yeah, but these guys want to see me fail. You see, that scene really tells you like why this is a world to get out of. Because he's doing so good, but he was like, "Oh, the guys from Boston want me to fail." It's like they want you to fail no matter what. You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? And then when he's like, "You like being married?" And he's like, "What? Yeah, I like being married." And he's like, "Nah, I couldn't do it." You know what I mean? It's like that scene sells so much of what Viggo Mortensen. It's such a great contrast where it's like Viggo Mortensen's like, "Yeah, I like being married. Yeah, I don't give a shit about having a big house." Like, you know what I mean? I think he deserves it, but I think a lot of people. I think Maria Bello deserves it.
Absolutely,
Fuck.
she is on fire in this movie.
Do you think? What does the movie have to say about violence and human nature?
I think that violence is our base state, and that everything else is what we build around it. Whereas I think a lot of people think it's the other way around. Of like, violence is this thing that can sneak into us,
right.
or is like a big city thing, or
is it's something that is evoked that is an aberration.
Yeah,
a mistake.
Yeah, I think this movie makes a case of that's our natural state, and we're doing everything to suppress it.
And I also think that in a hopeful way,
Cronenberg has definitely explored that in other movies too.
Right, rabid. But I think it's also saying you can overcome your nature and do something better. This guy was the lowest of the low, and he built this thing, and then he gets found out or whatever. And then in the end, he wants to come back to it, right? And I think that's another thing. In a movie, anyone can do anything, right? In the end, the ending shot of this could be him eating cereal at a diner alone. The ending shot of this could be him riding a Pegasus into the sunset, right? It's all choices. This doesn't have to be anything else, right? So he comes back, and when it's good writing and it's good filmmaking, it feels like there is no other option, right? Mm-hmm. So he comes back to the family, and he wants to be the dad again. And in my opinion, I think that they will let him do that, but it will be different. But that's what he wants to come back to. He's like, this is the true. It's like, the argument in this movie is that I am not Joey. I am Tom.
Yeah. Tom
is more real than Joey. It's interesting. It's an interesting point. I think it plays into what you're talking about right now. And I think the final scene is tying those two things together. It's like, that is our nature, but I strive to be better.
I think a worse movie has a very cynical ending. I think you could almost end it with him at the lake, and we never see the family again. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be an easier way out. Just be like, oh, the world's violent. Roll credits.
Right. Like,
but to tack that extra one on of just, but we're gonna try and be better, or try and do good. It's like that's what really puts it over the top. Mm-hmm. That ending is it's so good. It's perfect.
In the end, we like this movie and it works, right?
It's a movie of brilliant contrast, and it has a lot to say about human nature.
Yeah. I think that the beginning of it really threw me for a loop, and I think at the time, you don't notice the terrible duster jackets that Maria Bello was wearing, because that's what was cool at the time, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And her weird linen pants, which was cool at the time. But, no sequel or fan theory for me. I think that everything that's been said has been said in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that ties to the story that isn't resolved.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe when we started this, I didn't feel like it met my expectations, this movie, but the more we've talked about it, I think it's gotten to that place.
Yeah, I definitely, when I first watched it 11 years ago, I felt like this is just a really good brutal thriller with some great themes in it. And now I really see some of the really subtle filmmaking that Cronenberg is doing to put that over the top, to really sell it. And that's what separates it a lot from a more traditionally told type of movie.
And normally I'm against this, Kev. I'm against people re-editing their movies, but if they want to go back and fix those sound effects, I'm okay with
Yep.
it.
Oh yeah, let's get some genuine gunshots in there. Some more realistic ones too.
Yeah.
Guns, they sound like a pop almost, not a bang.
It sounds like a student film.
Yep.
That's it for this week. Episode that we did this time was written by Kev. The music that we played this time created by Jeff Russell. This time I was your host. Kev is your host. We are the law. You are the crime. Until next week. See you later.
Nobody's perfect, Tom.